Hello folks, and welcome back. In this video we'll be going through cooked versus raw foods, and we'll be looking at a very interesting study done by Mr. Pottenger with his famous study with cats back in the 1930s and 40s, I think it was, which was basically complementing the research of Weston A. Price with his nutrition and physical degeneration, which we'll go through in a second. So let's get straight into this. So when we cook foods, enzymes and secondary nutrients are extremely heat sensitive. All right, so heat also damages proteins and fats. We've got to keep this in mind. Cooking fats above 160 degrees Celsius changes the molecular structure of the essential fatty acids. Fats and oils that are safe to cook with are coconut, butter, ghee, lard and palm oil. These maintain their structure at higher temperatures. In general, saturated fats are more resilient to heat. Mono and polyunsaturated, which are omega-3s and 6s, typically found in vegetables, are more prone to heat sensitivity. Eating raw, unprocessed fruits, veg, seeds, and some meats are important for enzyme absorption. Heating pesticides and chemical residues in food combine to create new chemical compounds of toxins for your body to detoxify. Valerie Hunt from UCLA conducted human aura experiments with vital and non-vital foods, found that the life force of the foods we eat had a direct impact on the strength of our aura, which is that electromagnetic field that actually surrounds our body, which permeates from our core, which is our heart, which is otherwise found in every single cell of our being. It's this natural life force that flows through us. Raw organic foods strengthen the aura, whereas processed foods diminish our aura. So this is the study done by Pottenger. So Pottenger's cats, comparing raw food versus cooked foods with cats in particular. So over a 10-year experiment, feeding two groups of cats, one of which was fed raw meats and milk, whilst the other was fed cooked meats and pasteurized dairy. He found that the raw food group were healthy and vital. Shockingly, the other group, fed cooked and pasteurized milk, deteriorated rapidly to the point that the third generation of cats were unable to give birth. They were that deformed and malnourished. He found that full recovery was made 4 generations later after being put back on a correct diet with raw foods. What generation do you think humanity is at today, ever since the commercialization of food? Many are saying that the children being born today are the 4th generation of this. If you've had 3 generations of what came before in your family eating all this processed garbage, which would have passed along a lot of these physical degeneration and problems to you genetically, unfortunately. So this is why it's so very important, if you want to bring children into this world, that you start cleaning your body, become healthy and vital, start eating the organic, go back to how our ancestors ate with traditional foods, so you can set your children up to stand the most or have the most amount of health and vitality going forward, so we can correct this mess and just bring back good health, bring back normality basically. So recommend, you can buy this book on Amazon. It's relatively cheap. Obviously goes a bit more in depth into the research. It's a quick read, it's not too long, and it's obviously got a little bit more information and pictures and images there showing the kind of extent of the study for the different variables and the methodology used. But we'll just read through what he says in the front. Pottenger said, if it is true with human beings as it is with cats, that nutritionally caused degeneration is passed down to our children, a sobering challenge stands before us. So, but we know the solutions now. We identify the problem, and it's all about understanding and appreciate the solution and just going back to living basic, whole food, orientated, raw meats, mix of cooked foods, and just having that balance, knowing thyself, everything that this program is going to help you achieve, so we can actually start mending this madness. And so on the bottom here, in the front cover again, it says, the changes Dr. Pottenger observed in cats on deficient diets paralleled the degeneration that Weston A. Price found in people who abandoned traditional foods. Remember what we went through with his study with native tribes people and their degeneration after being put on the same kind of foods fed to these cats, the processed, cooked foods from the Western so-called diets. So they kind of go hand in hand and they kind of complement each other, which is very powerful. 2 very powerful bits of research that can otherwise just blow all the clack away from anyone else who's in denial about how foods can actually affect our health, especially those who are still on the veganism boat, vegetarianism boat, don't want to eat their meats, and trying to advocate processed foods and say that commercial farming practices aren't detrimental to our health. These 2 studies just blow that out of the water and pull their pants down, and the emperor has no clothes on. So encourage you to, if you want to bring this up when debating someone, just refer them to these studies, and then there's no argument. it's pure science. You can't argue against facts. So on the blurb, we'll just wrap it off by reading this out. So yeah, Francis M. Pottinger was dedicated to the prevention of chronic illness. In his classic feeding experiments, more than 900 cats were studied over 10 years. Dr. Pottinger found that only diets containing 100% raw milk and raw meat produce optimal health. This was reflected in good bone structure, wide palates, with plenty of space for teeth, shiny fur, reproductive ease, gentle disposition, and the absence of parasites or disease. The consumption of cooked meat or heat processed milk resulted in physical deterioration, which increased with each generation. The animals became infested with vermin and parasites. Skin diseases and allergies increased in some cases by over 90%. Bones became soft and pliable. The cats experienced adverse personality changes as well as hypothyroidism and came to suffer from most of the degenerative diseases seen in humans. The third generation did not even live long enough to reproduce, like I said. And on the bottom here, Dr. Pottinger's work offers us valuable insight into the root cause of preventable illness so widespread in our society today. And so yeah, key tips to consider, obviously, cook with the essential fats, which are, or the oils, which have a high heat tolerance, like the coconut oil, the butter, and the ghee and the palm oil. Best to have a combination of raw and cooked foods in your diet so you can get some of those secondary nutrients that otherwise are only available in raw produce. Don't overcook your meat. Always go for, tops medium, but you want medium rare, obviously organically sourced, so you got all that richness from there, and you're not obviously destroying all the nutrients that are locked up, because remember, even fats and proteins for that matter can change the molecular structure if heated too much. So yeah, make sure you stay away from processed foods, because even cooking them, like I said, because of all the chemical traces that are still in there, when you cook those chemicals, they create new chemicals that your body has never even discovered before, so it just creates more stress on the body. Cooking does help release some key nutrients in foods, especially in fibrous plant foods, but don't overdo it. It's all about balance. Raw nuts can be soaked in water for 12 hours to help release important enzymes and secondary nutrients and liberate the phytic acid, which is linked with inflammation of the gut. Just make sure you fully dry them out afterwards, otherwise molds will grow. And I found this out the hard way. I thought I dried them out, I didn't. They ended up developing molds like a week later. Popped a few in my shake in a blender, and obviously I started feeling a bit funny, and I didn't find out until the next day, where I went to make another shake, and I looked at the nuts and there was a bit of mold there. And so yeah, 3 or 4 days it took to kind of let that thing pass through, which wasn't very pleasant. So just make sure you dry this out either in the oven on a low temperature and or just outside in the sun, in the wind, so it can air out properly. All right, well, that concludes cooked versus raw foods. Very, very poignant study here. So yeah, make sure you remember this one and apply this now in your life. Make sure you're having, raw foods, vegetables, and also cooking just to alleviate and break down some of the fiber, but don't overdo it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video where we'll be going over the chemical trickery used in foods by these scientists, which is so very interesting. That tricks a lot of our centers in the brain, that analyzes the nutrients that come into our system in order to get us to basically keep consuming more and more and more, so they can end up making more and more profit whilst obviously driving our body into an early grave. So I'll see you there. All the best. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye bye.